Alrighty, I'm going to start this new series off with this story, but first, let me explain what this series is. The series is actually going to be about life skills. Now, what do I mean by life skills? I mean things you should have been taught in school when you were in high school or college even, that would really, really help you in life. I'm talking things like buying groceries, what groceries to buy, how much to spend. What happens when you get pulled over or even get into legal trouble? How to pay bills, how to balance a checkbook, and that part I'm going to skip over a little bit. I'm going to pick out some of the good parts out of that, but mostly basically money management. What happens when you get summoned to jury duty, which, by the way, I have been summoned to jury duty. That was actually earlier today. Relationships, sort of. I'm going to touch up a little bit on relationships a little bit. Not just a romantic relationship, but professional ones as well. Now, I'm not going to be giving advice per se, but it's going to be a little bit, there's a few things I have to mention on that. What happens when you're looking for an apartment or a house? How do you even start looking for an apartment or a house? What do you do? Who do you go to? What do you look for? What about roommates? What happens when you throw them into a mix? Do you want them? Do you not want them? What's the benefits? What's the disadvantages? I have lived with roommates. I've lived in a house. I have a car. I pay bills. I have a job. I've done all that. I've been there. And what about even basic car repairs or computer repairs or even house repairs? What do you do when you accidentally punch a hole in the wall? How do you fix it? How do you fix doors that are broken or hinges? Or how do you upgrade doors in case the security isn't good enough? How do you clean a place? What happens in, say, a big city? Like, what do you do? What is there to do? There's a lot to cover in life, and I'm hoping that I can, in some way, impart some of my experience in transitioning from a kid who's going to high school, living under his parents' roof in his parents' basement, essentially, to going to a full-fledged adult with a job, a car, a house, a life, relationships. And I'm hoping to impart some of that experience, and hopefully maybe someday somebody finds this interesting or at least very helpful. I would really like it if somebody found this helpful and somebody was able to successfully pay their bills and know what order to pay them in, or what happened, or successfully navigate the minefield that is getting pulled over. And that is kind of the essence of today's talk, is to basically kind of go over a short kind of story that happened to me, what happened, what I could have done to avoid it in the first place, and what kind of shouldn't have happened. So today's story is actually about me in handcuffs. I am probably the least likely person in the world to ever be thrown into a cop car with handcuffs, but it happened, and the question is, why did it happen? The answer is, it's a bit of an odd story, and hopefully not too long. I'm going to try and shorten it as much as possible here. So, I am not really great with money management. And you may be asking yourself, why is he teaching money management if he's not good at it? Well, the thing is I know how to manage money. I am really acutely aware of how to manage money. I know how to do finances. I know how to balance a checkbook. I know what happens when funds start running dry, what to do. But I don't sometimes follow my own advice. I often do. Oftentimes I follow my own advice to the letter. But sometimes I kind of avoid it. And that gets me into a lot of trouble. And I'm talking throwing in handcuffs into the back of a cop car trouble. So this actually all stems from money management. What I did wrong and how I should be avoiding this in the future, and hopefully some of this can be imparted on you. So this all starts a few years ago, basically back when I was just very new to the big city. I had just come from a smaller town, and I actually was born and raised in a town of about 200 people. Maybe a little less. So yeah, you can kind of imagine where this is going. And now I live in a really, really big city. A really big city with a lot of people in it. So, and I've been living here for the last few years. I'd say maybe last six years, give or take. And I've been driving for the last 8 years. I basically, when I first moved to the big city, I wasn't following some of the traffic laws, and I was following some others that a lot of people here seem to be breaking. So it's give and take. So when I first moved here, I did a couple of things I shouldn't have done. I went over the speed limit a couple of times, got pulled over for that. Okay, fair enough. And I didn't stop at a stop light completely. I kind of pulled a California stop. I was that close to an actual stop at a stoplight, like that close. And if I had just taken like a quarter of a second more, it would have been a complete stop, but it wasn't quite that way. And I was turning right on a red, so everything was good. But basically there was a camera at that intersection, and I'm aware that sometimes you can fight them, or you can say it wasn't you, and there's some stuff that you can, well, whatever. People have told me over and over again that there's ways you can fight it and you can completely get out of it. The point of this is that no matter how you deal with it, if you try and fight it or if you pay it, you have to get rid of it. There's a moral to this story. It cost me a lot of money and some time and handcuffs. So basically, when I first moved here, I got into a few traffic incidents, and this one specifically is the one that really got me. So basically, I kind of left these, and that's something you really shouldn't do. I left these traffic infringements because I wasn't quite at my job yet. I had a job, but I had just moved to the big city. There was a lot of expenses I had, and I was a little busy doing other things, and I just kind of ignored them and hoped that they would wait for me, and they sort of did. So the problem comes when I wanted to pay them off. So each of these individual traffic tickets was, and a lot of these actually were parking tickets, by the way. Literally just parking on the side of the road when I shouldn't have been parking on the side of the road. Go figure, you're not supposed to do that in a big city. You can do that in a small town, not in a big city. So, and seriously, a lot of these are parking tickets. Like, I've gotten, I think, 15, 20 parking tickets in the span of like 5 months. And yeah, those kind of rack up after a while. So they were like $50 to $70 each. And the traffic tickets themselves were about $90, $100, give or take. So I gotten maybe 2 tickets for speeding, 1 ticket for running a red light, essentially, not quite, not coming to a complete stop, which the camera caught and showed me a video online and said, hey, you owe us $90 basically. And a lot of parking tickets for like $50 to $70 each. And I kind of let these sit for 3-4 months. Now, the problem with letting them sit is that they grow. See, these traffic tickets were originally $50 to $70 each. And when I paid them, eventually when I got around to paying them, they were about $200 each. That sucked a lot, and that hurt my wallet. Now, I had saved all these traffic tickets and parking tickets until a point which I could effectively pay them. And, or at least to a point which I had resources to pay them and time to pay them, which I should not have done. I should have just paid them right away. I'm kind of an idiot, but I've learned from that mistake, and I hope you do too. Because $200 per ticket, or about 20, let's say 23 tickets, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And it gets worse. It gets a lot worse. So I had paid all these tickets, and I thought I had paid all these tickets. Minor correction there. So I paid all these tickets except for this not quite stopping at a red light ticket. Now, that came back to bite me about a year later. And unfortunately, as I just moved, all my mail was being sent to the wrong place, and I wasn't getting it. So about a year later, I get pulled over from a cop, and I'd moved to a new place at this time. I get pulled over by a cop, and he pulls me over for basically my taillight being busted, and I didn't know, which is fair. Okay, fair enough. I didn't know my taillight was busted. All right, I'll get it fixed, and I did. About a week later, I had it fixed. So I got pulled over, and this cop says, By the way, did you know your license has been revoked? Nope. So yeah, and that actually, I'm gonna omit some parts of this story intentionally because I want to retell some of this story later for a later episode, specifically getting pulled over and getting into legal trouble. But that'll be for a later episode. But so I'm gonna omit some parts of this story, but for now I'll tell it like this. So basically, he says, your license has been revoked, and I'm gonna need you to step outside of the vehicle. Oh, fuck. So I step outside. He tells me to put my hands behind my back. I do, and he puts me in cuffs and leads me to the back of his cop car. Handcuffs, by the way, more comfortable than you think they are. Back of the cop car, not nearly as comfortable as you might think it is. They have hard seats for a very good reason, because people like to throw up back there. Go figure. And other things. Don't ask. You don't want to know. And I was sitting in that joy. So this guy, basically he says, don't worry about it too much. It happens all the time. You might have just forgotten to pay a ticket. And yes, that turns out that's exactly what that was. He says, don't worry about it too much. It's okay. And, we were having a nice, friendly conversation, mostly. And he says, okay, you know what, everything's good to go. I'm just going to take you off the cuffs and lead you back to your car. I was like, well, I live literally down a block. By the way, I got pulled over about a block from my house, which really sucked. I said, I live about a block down the road. Would you mind if I just, drove to my house? He says, all right, fine. You can drive to your house, but you can't drive after that. Okay, fair enough. So went to take a look, and yes, that was the ticket that had cost me my license. So now what do I do? Well, here's what I did. I went and paid the ticket. It was a $90 ticket, $500 by the time I finished paying it off. And there is no limit to how large these tickets can get, by the way. If you wait years and years to pay this off, it can get up to thousands of dollars. So I was kind of lucky. I caught it, sort of ish lucky. I caught it within a reasonable amount of time, which it was within my paycheck to actually get. So I paid it off, about $500. Sucked. So unfortunately, this story doesn't end yet. It doesn't actually end for the next couple of years. At this point, my license had been revoked, and I had to get it back. So what do I do? Well, at this point, I'm actually making about $12 an hour, and I had actually worked in a place that was within walking distance of my house, so it wasn't too big a deal, which is why it took me so long to get my license back. But, eventually I moved jobs and had to figure out a way to get transportation. So, and during this time, by the way, I had accidentally parked in a bad place, and I had to move my car once again. Now, the parking ticket to pay off, eventually you think I'd learn, but apparently not. So I went ahead and I paid off the ticket, which cost me a fair chunk of my paycheck, but it wasn't too bad. And I went to get my license reinstated. Now, apparently, when you get your license revoked, and I had to pay off this ticket for the busted taillight, which, by the way, cost a busted taillight, driving without a license, and in this state, when you don't drive without a license, you also don't drive without insurance. When your license gets revoked, your insurance gets nullified. So I was driving without a license and driving without insurance. Joy. So I got fines for those too. So went ahead, paid that off, paid the new ticket off, which cost me another couple $100. And I went to go get my license reinstated. Now, what did this entail? Well, this basically, when you get your license revoked, you get your ability to have a license revoked. It's a bit weird. So you no longer have the ability to obtain a license. And in order to reinstate that ability to even have a license, you have to pay a $120 fee. Joy. So now what you have to do is you have to go through the whole process again. What do you mean? Well, you have to go through and go back to get your permit. And by this point, by the way, I had been driving for several years. You have to go back to get your permit and then get your license. Joy. So went ahead and went to the DMV to basically pay off this fine. So I went to a permit place. Got my permit, no problem. They said, okay, you have to go back to the DMV and get a real permit to come back to get your license. Great. So I went to the DMV. paid another $20 to get the permit and the picture. Stood in line for about an hour for a picture and to go through the whole process. Went back to the test place, and they said, okay, it'll cost an extra $60 to rent a car for this test. Fine. So went ahead, got the test for $60 and failed it. And unfortunately, I was so comfortable and so relaxed that I forgot to drive with two hands. So the entire time I was driving with a single hand, with my other hand just kind of on the console. Oops. So yeah, went back the next day, since you can't take a test in the same day. Went back the next day, paid another $60 to retake the test. And then finally got that one passed. Passed with flying colors, no problem. Went back to the DMV, got my license reinstated. Now, unfortunately, during this time, my plates had expired, so I had to go back to the DMV again, and I didn't know this until after I left the DMV, so about a day later, I went back to the DMV again, paid another $120 to get my license plates reinstated, blah, 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 got everything done, got new plates on the car, everything's hunky-dory, finally got everything done. So what did this traffic infringement that used to cost $90 cost me? In total, cost me a little over $1,000, about $1,500. And a lot of my time. That was a DMV is not a short chunk of your time. So, long story short, don't avoid tickets. The lesson of today's video: if you get traffic tickets, don't avoid them. Pay them off as soon as you possibly can. I currently do have a traffic ticket against me at this moment. That is for speeding, unfortunately. Whoops. I'll never learn. I really won't. Fortunately, I do not have the money to pay for it yet, but rest assured, as soon as I get the money, the second that I get the money to pay for this, it is getting paid. Because I've learned from this mistake, and it cost me a lot of money and a lot of time, and I really hope that if something like this does happen to you, that you avoid it. Because trust me, it's not worth avoiding. You can ignore it, but it's not going to ignore you. So take that to heart, and we'll go ahead and cover some other topics in a few future videos here that I want to make. Just to kind of get these out there and make sure that we all understand what's going on with the world, and figure out what laws there are, and what you can do to try and stop that from happening to you. Tickets, unfortunately, are a tax on the poor, and I am not rich, so I will go ahead and leave the video there, and hopefully you enjoyed the story and can share in my pain and misery and maybe laugh at it a little bit, and hopefully learn something from it. So see you guys next time. Bye.